This is the story of a man I knew who told me this over a plate of stew. Sami Satham was strong and true, the seventh son from a line I knew. For 7 years and months gone by, his son's laughter lit up his lap, a tiny hand in his embrace, a vow to God to sheathe in peace. But whispers cold like the winter's breath brought a truth that felt like death. He isn't yours, the voices said, a claim that filled Samir's heart with dread. He begged, he fought, he sought his way, yet still the code had this to still. It doesn't matter, because you're the one, because a father's duty is never done. Samir's love was real, but so was his pain. Yet by the shackles of law, Samir must now forever remain. This point sometimes scares me. It could be scary for other men out there too. Unfortunately, as much as this is a piece of fiction, this also reports the stark reality that the Indian man is about to face. We are discussing this and much more on the other side of this. So stay tuned. Welcome to the law. Today, we explore the groundbreaking Supreme Court judgment that upholds the legitimacy of a child born from an adulterous relationship and its impact on the society, especially on those of maintenance claims and maintenance laws. In the recent ruling of the Supreme Court in the case of Evan Ratnam versus Milan Joseph, a case that rose out of a long-drawn legal battle between the respondent and the petitioner, the apex court reaffirmed that a child born during a valid marriage is presumed to be the legal offspring of the husband, even when the wife has had an extramarital affair. This presumption stems from Section 112 of the Indian Evidence Act, which states that a child born during a continuous marriage is conclusively presumed to be the child of the husband and the wife unless proven otherwise. This court also ruled that merely alleging adultery is insufficient to challenge this presumption, and a DNA test cannot be forced unless there is substantial evidence to prove otherwise. Now, this ruling has far-reaching consequences for the entire society and as individual family units. It ensures, obviously, that a child is not subjected to societal stigma or legal disadvantages due to circumstances that were not within his control. And by upholding the legitimacy, this court aims to preserve the family stability and dynamics to protect the emotional and financial well-being of the child. However, this also sparks a great debate about individual rights of the men involved in such a case. Should a father be forced to raise a child that isn't obviously his, or one that he suspects to be of another man? And does the child have an absolute right to know whether his biological father or biological parentage is what he has been told all of his life? Now, in order to understand this concept completely, one needs to look at this from different perspectives. In this instant discussion, however, there are three perspectives that need to be discussed, and for the urgent feminazis who are going to amend after this line, this unfortunately is a place where all the perspectives are of the men who are involved in such a case. I'd like to call these three as the father, the son, and the paramour. So, let's discuss and understand the effects of this new normal that stares us blank in our faces in this modern world. So, one of the most critical impacts that this judgment or ruling is going to have is obviously on the maintenance claims that are being presented by children towards their fathers. Now, in case of a legitimate child, regardless of his biological parentage, the child has right to claim maintenance from his family and his parents. Now, because we live in a society where the father is mostly seen or has to take on the onus of providing maintenance to other members of his family, this implies that the child has an absolute right to claim for maintenance from his father. Under Section 125 of the CRPC, a child can seek maintenance from his presumed father or the husband in this case, even if the biological father of the child is someone else. The biological father, however, may or may not have a legal obligation to provide maintenance unless a paternity test reveals that he is indeed the child of the father. I mean, the father of the child. This ruling obviously places a financial burden on the husband, who may be required to provide support to the child despite having suspicions of adultery from his partner. However, it also prevents the children from being left out without a financial support due to the disputes between the parents. For biological fathers, this raises the question: should they be legally obligated to provide maintenance or to contribute in such cases towards the child? And should the law evolve to account for such genetic reality that is obviously going to catch up sometime soon? Now, this ruling provides a larger legal and ethical debate to be done around parenthood, responsibility, and justice. By reinforcing that marriages are have legal presumptions which are beyond biological ties between them. It questions whether maintenance laws should be updated to recognize the changing dynamics between changing dynamics of relationships between the individuals that we are going to be in the future. And it also challenges the courts to balance the legitimacy, privacy, and fairness, which have to be dealt for each individual who is involved in such a case, and specifically in the cases of family. Now, to understand why this has become such a controversial topic, we have to discuss the previously said perspectives. Now, the perspectives of the two most affected people in such a judgment will obviously be the father, the son, and the parent. Starting with the father. Now, through social media, I'm pretty sure that most of you must have heard and will have taken a stand that the legal father in such cases is always at a loss when these situations arise and when they have to face the court. And while on the first glance this happens to be true, the reality lies within the tweaks of the reasoning behind this. The reasoning behind this is obviously to make sure that the child isn't left out without an option to have the best chances of growing up, which is the sole purpose of creating maintenance laws for children at the first place. That is also to make sure that the court decides what is best for the child as a legal principle. However, this does not necessarily mean that the onus of raising a child that isn't biologically yours falls entirely upon the father. Rather, he is made part to be responsible for the child and contribute towards it when when the other options or sources available to the child aren't enough. The other partner or parent is equally eligible to contribute towards the development of the child, and depending upon the case and facts, the discretion of the court concerned, the onus may shift completely or majorly towards the mother alone too. Moreover, in order to get away from the onus of raising a child that isn't biologically a person's, the man simply has to prove before the court that during the time around the conception of the child, there was no physical contact between the man and the wife or the adulteress. And while this is obviously a complex procedure, another way to do the same is to provide enough proof to the court by other means like showing the different time periods where the couple wasn't together, or medical problems or medical reports to persuade the court to have a DNA test between the father and the child. Also, between the child and the presumed biological father. And once that has been proved, the entire onus of providing maintenance falls towards the biological parents of the child instead of the man or the legal father who is involved. Okay, so secondly, this brings us to the crux of the matter, which is obviously the child. This case, one must understand, isn't just about legalities, nor is it just about financial maintenance that is being provided to a child. This judgment aims to repair something that is much deeper. It's about a child's right to exist with dignity and without being branded by the circumstances that were never within his control. Think about it. Should a child be forced to bear the weight of the decisions that he did not make? Should he grow up carrying the burden of societal judgment, all because of outdated stigmas that the society still reveals? That this decision is far more than just a ruling for the legal paternity. It's a statement and a powerful message that the legitimacy of a child is not a privilege but rather a right that cannot be overshadowed by the fleeting responsibilities of a man who contributed to the child's birth. Now, unlike the adults involved in the case who have the means, status, or resilience to navigate the prejudices or the stigmas that are thrown in front of them. The child stands before this entire world defenseless. And that is exactly what happened in this case. The child had to approach the family court himself, not for the luxuries, not for the favors, but for something as basic as maintenance from his biological father. A right that, in the first place, should not have been up for debate itself. And if we as a society cannot uphold this basic principle, then aren't we failing our children and the next generation that is to come? Are we allowing outdated mindsets of people to shape the future of those who never had a say in how or under what circumstances they came into this world? But here's the real question. Is financial support alone enough when a child is subjected to whispers, judgment, and ridicule by the people around him? When his very identity is questioned at every step of his life? Can money shield him from the scars of societal judgment? The reality is stark and it is very tough. This is more than just about faithfulness. It's about dignity, it's about the fundamental right of a child to exist without being tainted by the circumstances of his birth and the decisions made by his parents. This ruling isn't just important, it's necessary. Because at the end of the day, no child should have the right for something as fundamental as their place in this world. This should not be a fight that the child has to fight all alone. Now, finally, we come to the case of a paramour. Now, it's almost second nature for anyone who ever goes or follows cases of adultery to see paramours as the ultimate homewreckers. Now, after all, they are the ones who shattered a happy family, a thriving unit of two people. But here's the twist. This very perception is exactly why adultery is no longer a crime in the eyes of law. Now, for those of you who remember Section 497 from the old Indian Penal Code, you must remember that it became a relic of the past because adultery and the laws regarding adultery were lopsided. In cases of adultery, only husbands had the right to file complaint and only against the paramour. So in this case, the right to complain against a case of adultery lied with men, and the onus of being punished because of a case of adultery also fell upon men. Women neither had any right nor any responsibility in cases of adultery. Now, this created a problem because, first, women who knew their partners were in adulterous relationships could do nothing because the society never wanted to uh, stain the ledger of some other woman for the sake of providing justice to the one who complained. Now, this law did not just punish selectively, but it completely ignored the modern relationship dynamics that have developed in the 21st century. Now, here's where this judgment makes a complete roundabout in this case. Now, unlike the now abolished Section 497, this ruling finally gives power to the man who is a paramour a voice to fight for his rights. It acknowledges his rights to defend himself, to protect his privacy, and not to be reduced to a mere afterthought in cases of legal battles. And that is a monumental shift in the Indian legal system. Because what happens when a man is deceived is seldom given thought of. What if he was unknowingly or unwillingly a part of such an adulterous relationship? What if he was coerced, manipulated, or even harassed? In a time when men's rights are in a situation of turmoil or completely non-negligent in the present legal system, this ruling offers something that we rarely see: a hope or a safeguard against cases that could be misleading or false. Under the right circumstances, the woman who instigated the adulterous relationship could now be held fully responsible for the child financially and legally. This means that if the husband proves that the wife was in an adulterous relationship and that the child was a result of that, and the biological father of the child proves that he was either unknowingly a part of this relationship or was coerced or forced or manipulated to be in such a relationship, then the entire financial and legal burden of raising and maintaining the child falls upon the woman alone. No longer can a man be dragged into such a situation where he had no agency or uh, was expected to bear the brunt of the maintenance. This isn't just a verdict, but rather a turning point in cases of adultery and how the legal system works its way through. It challenges the long held perceptions and the narratives that have been set on the stage for future in cases to provide fairness and justice to men as well. Because at the end of the day, true justice isn't just about punishing one gender over the other. It's about making sure that the right person has been held accountable. So, with this, we come to the end of the discussion. But there are other thoughts that I would like to personally discuss in this case. Firstly, as we have already gone numerous times before, the right of the child is the first and foremost thought in cases where maintenance is involved. This, when seen with a conjunction to the recent cases where men have borne the brunt of maintenance in cases of alimony, it makes it very clear that the present uh, circumstances or the present way in which courts deal with cases of alimony and maintenance is quite lopsided, wherein the brunt of the entire legal battle as well as every afterthought that comes with it falls entirely or for the most part majorly upon men. In a society that strives to have gender equality and is rapidly trying to disperse its identity as a previous patriarchal society, this becomes a thorn in the way of achieving true equality. Because every time when a person has to fear that his rights are being violated in order to provide justice to someone else, then the same person will never have the courage to go to the court in the first place. But that is just a thought that a person like me could have. It's obviously not a time where women have come into the foremost uh, part of such center stage of legal battles, where they could enjoy every right that is being provided to them by the constitution or by the laws. So obviously, a feminist way of looking at things in cases of maintenance is quite palpable and is important. But the question arises that is it necessary to keep the same feminist approach in deciding cases, even when there is a very good chance that the person in front of us could have liability or equal chances of having liability in cases where they could simply have the thought of harming their spouse or their partner by claiming maintenance. So, what do you guys think? Is this a bold step towards fairness or does it open new debates in the society? Drop your comments in the comment box and let's keep this conversation going, because if such conversations are not thought of in the, at the turning point of this new era that we're going to see, then obviously there will be challenges which we will eventually have to face, and those will come with greater consequences. This change is not just to inform the people, but to bring about a change. But that's just me ranting about laws for the last 10 minutes. Now it's time for you as a viewer to chime in. Tell us about your thoughts on these following questions. Should a man be compelled to accept paternity of a child without doing a DNA test at first? And should a biological father be made responsible in cases where he did not have a voluntary part in a relationship? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Comment below, like, share, and subscribe for more legal analysis. And until next time, see you at the lip.